I'm the one who gets to have fun in my job. After 25 years of being a foreign correspondent, business writer in news agencies around the world, I wangled myself a job 7 years ago, which basically means that if someone walks into my office and I'm watching cricket, I've got a very good excuse. And I can say to my wife, darling, I've really got to watch this football match. It's the greatest excuse I've ever. So I'm a bit like a sort of kid in a candy store sometimes. But then they went and changed everything on us. Sort of 7 years ago, even 7 years ago, it was a nice simple profession where essentially agencies were working for newspapers and broadcasters. And it was relatively simple still. And in the last 7 years, the change has been giddy. It's been terrifying in the speed that we've had to negotiate developments. If I just give you one example here of I don't know how many of you will remember the incident in Geneva about 4 or 5 months ago when police raided a hotel which was full of, it was in Zurich, raided a hotel that was full of FIFA executives, arrested several of them. It was the crack of dawn, it was 7 a.m. There were some journalists in the hotel. They'd been tipped off in the States about the story. The New York Times was sitting in the hotel lobby, but unfortunately for them, they were actually having breakfast. My guy, who's an exciting young journalist, had been woken up at about 6 a.m. with a tip-off that something was happening. He jumped out of bed, pulled his clothes on. He's a very scruffy guy anyway. Ran about half a mile to the hotel. And as he got to within 200 or 300 yards, he had the sense to take his phone out of his pocket, to put it onto video, and simply walk the last 50 meters to the hotel with his phone held out in front of him. That 45 seconds of video in which he walks up to a car where a sheet is being held over in front of people. Police are ushering a few elderly gentlemen into a car, and someone eventually attacks him and tries to push him away. That video, it was grainy, it was bumpy, it was unprofessional. That has become one of the AP's most successful ever news videos. Last night, ITV News had a story about FIFA. They had plenty of new information. The only video they chose to illustrate it with was this 30 seconds of video that my writer had shot as he walked to the hotel, and that for me summarizes what changes we're having to introduce. The change is also personified by something as simple as covering a football match for an agency like the Associated Press. The time was when the esteemed sports writer or football writer would turn up at a stadium and sit down, take his notebook out, watch the game for 90 minutes, then go to the club bar, have a few drinks with the manager, go back to his seat, regally tap out his match report of 800-900 words, phone it into a Fleet Street copy taker. Do you remember copy takers, guys? Does that mean anything to anyone? That's one of the biggest losses, in my opinion. Phone it into a copy taker, and it would appear in the newspaper the next day. How lovely. These days, my reporters, the difference is absolutely astonishing. What these guys have to do. And do excuse me if I use the male gender for most of my descriptions here. They are all male. That's another debate to have a different day. I wish I had more women sports writers and broadcasters. I wish there were more in the industry. There aren't. They're not there. I've just interviewed this week for a position in Rio. I had 62 applications. 61 of them were from men. 1 was from a woman who spoke no English. So that was really sad as far as I'm concerned. But that's another discussion. These days, what do my reporters have to do? We'll run a live blog during the game. My reporters will tweet during the game. Rob Harris, the guy I'm talking about who did the video in Zurich, he'll quite often be interviewed during a game. He'll periscope that into that radio interview, which will be broadcast while he's actually covering a game. I'm actually not quite sure if he ever sees any of the football that happens during the game, but this guy has created a brand for himself as a reporter. His Twitter feed, @RobHarris, has 110,000 followers. Now, this is just one guy, for goodness sake. He's getting up there with the AP corporate Twitter feed. So the change has been dramatic in the way we report, and you know, if we take it down, strip it down to basics of when I started in this job, it was, you know, I suppose, B2B. Then it became B2B2C, and then we started adding so many initials that it became pointless, and we sort of have to start finding a new description. So now, in sporting terms, I'm thinking of next year's European Championships in France, where Europe's, you know, the world's finest soccer nations will appear. A major event for all of us, all news agencies, broadcasters. And I'm thinking, well, how do we cover this? And do I want traditional match reports? No, I don't. No one reads them anymore. The world has changed in that second screening has become so popular that the match report has been read almost by the time the game's over. And if anyone wants anything else, they're sitting with their iPad in front of them. The next day is just far too late, or even later that evening is far too late. Because we, as consumers, we've become just much more demanding and sophisticated, that this material has to be available as the game plays. So, live blogging, periscoping, hopefully getting some little batches of rights to show the occasional goal, which we can rarely afford in a news agency. All this has to be pumped out at a speed that's giddy for the reporters to try and produce. If we look at the old-fashioned sports writers and the way they must mourn the death of what they did, yes, obviously it was a fantastic job to have, to be a football writer, to go to a stadium and enjoy it with your chums. These days, the younger generation of sports writers who are coming up through the ranks now, they are having fun. They're having enormous fun with what technology can offer them these days and what we can offer consumers of news. So that's why I'm very much in favour of it too. So thanks very much.